Hello, Enolia, we're alive. Do you want to start us?
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Yes. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to today's conversation, and we are thrilled to have Ben Caron with us and my co-host, Sara Jane. Ben, thank you so much for being here with us. And just to tell you a little bit about Ben, he is a singer-songwriter, and he is a leader in every right. Thrilled to share with you transformational experiences that change your life. And I'm going to leave it at that and let the self-discovery process take place. So, Ben, thank you for joining us. And I want to start off with talking to you about what was the most significant transformational experience that impacted your life that you would like to share with us?
Interesting. Well, I guess, I have a pretty broad definition of transformational experience. For me, I sort of regard what might be considered like a traditional transformational experience, such as, let's say, a yoga class or a meditation class or actual transformational training that people do. I regard it similarly to the thing that came immediately to mind was meeting my husband was the most transformational experience of my life. So that I would say, if I'm using this broader definition of transformational experience, that's what I would say is that, meeting this person, meeting my husband, and then just all of the new possibilities and new ideas and new ways of knowing and understanding myself that showed up after that, for sure has to be acknowledged as the most transformational experience of my life. If I may be narrowing it to more of a traditional kind of understanding of transformational experience, I would maybe say yoga has been one of the most transformational experiences of my life, because before yoga, I really was living a life that was really half embodied. I spent a lot of my life not really living inside of my own body, and yoga was the transformational experience that helped me to drop in and actually experience what was going on in the body. And that really opened up a lot for me from there. So I guess I would say yoga, beyond meeting my husband, which was its own kind of yoga.
Oh, beautiful. Yes. And Sara Jane?
See, I see transformation as being slightly different in respect. I suppose I would refer to it almost as being my wake-up call. And for me, that goes back to something quite traumatic that happened. The dentist broke my jaw extracting a wisdom tooth, and left me. I didn't know it was broken for a week. So it was like a 2-hour operation to sort of pin the thing back in place, and left me with 6 months of pain and sleepless nights. But coming from being an extremely insecure person, which I know anybody looking at me now would think, yeah, right, really? Yes, absolutely. From being very insecure, it was just like I was so exhausted being the people pleaser that I used to be. And I just hadn't got the energy for that anymore. And so, although the initial what happened, you could really transformational, but actually all the resulting stuff that came from it. And we were talking before about sort of things really flowing in our lives. And eventually, I think it was sort of like 10 months later, I said, right, that's the end of my marriage. I'm out of it. And from that moment, things started to really change in my life. But it was having that initial thing that happened that created that wake up. And that did, not right at that immediate moment in time, but that transformed my life. It opened me up to so much. It opened me up to Reiki, to learning it. And that has been a transformation in itself. And learning other techniques So that one thing led to a whole lot more. And without that one thing, so I'd say that was a majorly transformational thing that happened in my life. So yes, what's transformational? Whatever you choose to make transformational. Enolia.
Can I piggyback on that just very quickly? Sorry. And then I want to hear your answer to it as well, Enolia, for sure. I just wanted to say that I feel like what you just said, Sarah, really opens up a theme that I thought would be important to explore, which is a way of understanding and processing the last year as a transformational experience. And the way that if I allow myself to, I can understand that the things in my life that even I might have deemed to be, some people might have deemed burdensome or to be tragic, or which they might be it might be entirely true that that's the case, right? Like your jaw breaking was tragic for you in some ways and burdensome in some ways. But at this point in your life, you've come to understand that it was an important and necessary part of your transformation. And that to me is a big part of how I process this last year of, planet Earth, that there are and were some incredibly tragic parts of it. And yet also they opened up a lot of possibility that didn't exist to us before. And so that I think to me is just how I'm currently living my life, in that sort of balanced understanding of honoring the tragedy and the challenge of things, but also looking for and honoring the ways that it opens up new possibility. And I think your story just it illustrated that for me really beautifully. And Enolia, did you want to share your transformational experience? I'd love to hear what was yours.
So for me, it was two moments. One was a 100-mile walk across Kenya, East and West Tsavo parks. I was at an all-time low at my job. I was rethinking what I wanted to do with my life, and I took this walking safari. And walking across the land, the motherland, and being out there with the animals and realizing that the animals weren't interested in us. So all of the fear I held around being with these animals and being on the land, on their territory, and that I just looked like another animal to them, and as long as I mind my business, they minded theirs. It awakened something within me I can't even fundamentally describe. It made me understand how important everything was. And it made me realize that the earth recharged me. I got clarity on that walk like nobody's business. I had to find the strength within me to complete it. I averaged 10 miles a day. There were times that I fell down, that I could have, easily said, oh, just give me a ride. I don't want to do the walk the next day, and gone with where they were moving our tents forward to meet us, and gone with the workers. And I was like, no, I'm going to finish this. I don't care how sore I am. I don't care what hurt. I'm going to move through this. And I have to tell you that changed my life. It brought an experience so deep and so profound with such clarity that I knew that I could not go back and sit in an office from 8 hours a day, 8 to 5, and just be in front of a computer anymore. It changed my life. And that's when I decided to dream a beautiful dream. Otherwise I was being dreamt. I was in this environment that I felt stuck in and locked into, and it was of my own making. And I'm going to ask you about the hopes that you had during your transformation. What hopes did you have, and did you embark on that to change your life, to actually embrace that transformation? So Ben, I'll go back to you.
Well, can I respond to your story? I would love to. There were a few things that felt
Sure.
important for me to acknowledge from what you shared. One is I just wanted to affirm the power of long walks and pilgrimages. 2 summers ago, I went on the Camino de Santiago, which was another massive transformational experience. And for folks who are listening who maybe don't know what that is, it's a ancient pilgrimage that was established, some say before the Catholic Church, and then the Catholic Church sort of made it their own. But certainly for a long time has been sort of run by the Catholic Church, and it goes from different parts of Europe to meet in Compostela de Santiago, which is where the bones of Saint James are alleged to be buried. And it's a sacred spiritual pilgrimage in the tradition of the Catholic Church. But the reason I bring it up is that what I found through doing this pilgrimage is that most of the world's spiritual traditions have their own pilgrimage, because there is something innate about the human creature that is healed through long walks. My understanding in doing a little more research is that some of what it does is it balances the hemispheres of our brain, because we're doing this sort of left-right movement, in a long walk. And so over time, it helps our brains kind of recalibrate back to center. But also it gives a lot of time for contemplation and reflection, and to be present to what's around, and to allow the distractions of contemporary life to kind of melt away. And so at the beginning of this last year, coming out of 2020, I just felt this need to kind of have a reset in my life. And so I actually found online, there was an online version of the Camino de Santiago through an app called the Conqueror app. And basically, it's a bunch of walking challenges that you can do online with other people that track virtually online different places in the world that you can sort of walk on the map. And I was able to complete the whole Camino de Santiago virtually at the beginning of this year. And the way that it transformed my mindset was so astonishing that it always surprises me going through this process of what one of my teachers called conceal and reveal. This idea of like, as we sort of level up in our consciousness, we'll like gather a tool or gather an insight, and then it'll be really useful to me. And then I'll be walking along my journey, and then somehow I'll forget that I even have the thing in the tool belt until later when I've made my way around the kind of the insight circle to arrive back and be like, oh yeah, that one beautiful tool that's been here all along. It's like Dorothy's ruby slippers, right? Like, oh, I've had it with me all along. I could have just clicked my heels. And so picking up long walks again was a massively healing experience for me at the beginning of this year. So I just want to acknowledge that, because I think it's so accessible for folks. If you're somebody who's listening at home and you're like, I want some way to find a shift in my life, explore whether just taking long walks around your neighborhood would change something in your mindset, because that worked really powerfully for me. And not to monologue, but there's one other thing that I wanted to mention about your story, which is that you mentioned just being this revelation of being with nature and realizing that nature wasn't out to get you, that you could actually be in harmony with nature. And I think that's just such an important thing to acknowledge in our contemporary times, in that I think human expansion has been built on this idea of dominating the feminine, dominating nature. The sort of the history of patriarchy in the Western world has been to conquer nature, out of this sort of false belief that nature is out to destroy us, and that if we have, it creates a combative relationship with nature. The animals are here, the animals are going to eat us, and therefore we must dominate them. And what I love about your story is that it sort of brings like front and center this idea that nature wants to live in harmony with us, even if our perceptions of what harmony are not in alignment with our preferences as to how we want to live. Nature wants to be in harmony, not in dissonance with us. We're the ones that create that dissonance with nature. So I just love the idea that you went on this beautiful, powerful walk and you discovered like, oh, nature and we can be in harmony if I allow myself to be. I'm the person who's afraid of this situation, nature, not nature, So I just want to acknowledge both those things. I think they're really important, powerful things that you realized or found through your walk?
And I don't want to forget the question, which is the hope that and that you found in your transformative experience. Because see, these experiences bring us through to the other side. And I want to talk about to that other side, because it's a change of attitude. It's a change of spirit. It's a change in us. And I know that both of you can relate. So I want to make sure that we don't lose that from you.
Sure. Well, Sarah, do you want to go first and then I'll piggyback? Because I have thoughts, but I want to make sure I'm passing the ball evenly. So do you want to speak to Hope first and how Hope showed up in your experience?
I suppose for me, it was coming to an understanding, especially coming from that people pleaser and constantly being worried about what other people thought about me. And it was that wake up moment of, but they aren't thinking about me because they've got so much going on in their own life. And it was just like, so I can do what I choose and stop worrying about what other people think. And so one of the first things when I became aware, it was just like, something came out of a magazine or something, and it was to do with the UK Wolf Conservation Trust. And they were going to be, I became a member. You could go for a walk with the wolves. And I became a member. And in the first magazine they sent out a leaflet about doing a trip to Romania to work with the Carpathian Large Carnivore Project to track wolves and lynx in the Carpathian Mountains for a couple of weeks. Now, this is not to kill. I wouldn't have anything to do with kill. And so you talk about long walks. Yes, we spent our days in the mountains. It was beautiful. In February 2000, in the snow and the cold, it was beautiful. Wow. It was really beautiful. But it didn't matter what other people thought. I abseiled off the water tower locally here where I live, sort of, which is like a mushroom shaped thing. So abseiling, you think about bouncing down the sides of a cliff. No, I was dangling in the air. But I started doing things. And even if people turned around to me and said, oh, my mother's reaction to the abseil was, oh, you can't do that. Yes, I can. And I didn't worry about what she thought. And it became about a freedom. And it was about, for me, I think it became about freedom rather than hope. Because it was a freedom to do. And I did. I not only went for a walk with the wolves, and I did do the trip to Romania, yes, but I became a trainee handler at the Wolf Conservation Trust. So I actually had up close and personal contact with the wolves. The one thing that I've tried to do most years, last year obviously being quite difficult, being 2020 in lockdowns, is to do something new and different every year. So for my 60th, I did a wing walk, so strapped to the wings of a plane as it took off, and a zip wire, a mile-long zip wire. It was just do something to experience life. Life is for living. It is not about worrying about what other people think when they're not thinking about you anyway.
I think I can actually connect that dot from what you just said to hope, because for me, I love that was your choice, especially in last year, because I think the reason that in my experience, or at least what I saw projected into the sort of collective unconscious, which is Facebook or social media or the news or whatever, right, is that I experienced, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, within myself to some extent, as well as within my community and what I was seeing online, that there was a sense of hopelessness and helplessness. So hopelessness in the sense of, for me, the way I would define hope is the belief that the future can be positive, that the future can have positive outcomes. And when I start to lose that belief that the future can have a positive outcome, I begin to go to the other side of the duality, which is despair, right? Hope is like the future can have positive outcomes. Despair is the future has no positive outcomes. And so what I love about what you said, Sarah, is that when I engage in something new, it is an act of faith that the future can be different than the present, in the sense of because it is automatically when I do something new, because because it's something I've never done before, so it's different. And most of the time, the reason that I do something different is because I believe it will be positive. I'm generally not going to engage with something new if I don't have the faith that you wouldn't go on this wolf walk. I projecting. You wouldn't go on this wolf walk if you didn't think it was going to be a positive experience, right? So it brings hope to choose these brand new experiences, brings a sense of hope, because it says, this is a choice that I've never made before, and I have the faith that by choosing it, I'm going to lead to a positive outcome. In the same way that, I'd never gone on the Camino de Santiago before, so it was a leap of faith, right? I had hope that this would lead to a positive outcome. And I think that, tracking to all the transformational experiences that we've all kind of mentioned, there's that through line amongst it. It's the idea that the future can be positive. If I make this choice, which is a new choice for me, whether it's yoga, dating my husband, going on this long walk, through nature, going on the wolf walk, like there is hope in it, right? Otherwise we wouldn't do it. And I think that's where folks get a little bit stuck, and where I've gotten stuck in the past and that's why I wanted to sort of to clarify that I think that these are skill sets, like hope, compassion, possibility, I think are practices that one can choose in one's own mind. And generally I find that for myself, when I'm in a place of despair or a place of disconnect or, apathy, or a place where it feels like there's no possibility, it's because I've lost sight of the practice of practicing these skill sets. And so that my advocacy for folks is to kind of, if rather than thinking about it, these like hope, compassion, and possibility as things that show up, from the outside world, thinking of them as things that can be cultivated within our inside world.
Yeah.
Enolia, how does hope show up for you?
Yeah. So for me, when I sit here and I think about it, I'm going to go back to that 100-mile walk. And one of the things that came as a really huge self-realization was that I was creating a lot of my own blocks, that I was getting in my own way. And what I held as an impossibility was my own belief system. That when I challenged that, and I just basically say, I will not allow that to be a block, I'm going to figure it out, then there wasn't really anything holding me back from what I wanted to do or how I wanted to break through the issues that I had, And for me, I pinpointed this particular time because this is when I finished with the corporate job, and I decided to pick up and move from New York and move out to California, and my marriage had just ended. And, here was this infinite possibilities of the fact that I was starting a whole different life. And by the way, Ben is one of the first people I met in LA. So dear to my heart. And, inviting beauty and love into my life in a tumultuous time. And that I had a choice in how I looked at the barriers. I had a choice in how I looked at the challenges that confronted me, and that I could make my situation more tumultuous by just how I viewed it and how I looked at the challenges. And I say this because compassion starts with self. And it's extended throughout everywhere that you look. hope starts with self. If you look at life through hopeless eyes and without compassion for self, to able to be the best version of who you are, then no one else is going to look upon you that way. And when you're meeting people, they see what you're vibrating inside. And for me, coming to a new state, new way of doing things by myself, not knowing anyone, but keeping a smile on my face and knowing that no matter what I faced out there, it's how I chose to move through the story of what I just went through and move through life moving forward. That it was me that made that difference, and to me, I met the most wonderful people, you being one of them, and did some of the most phenomenal activities and participated in things that I never would have touched upon before. And I think that these experiences, the culmination of how we view these experiences and the life lessons and the compassion that we have and the hope that we have, create what comes next. So I pose back to both of you, how do we leverage these experiences for the most positive outcome in a tumultuous situation, in a tumultuous society now?
Do you want to go first?
No, Ben, you can go first.
Well, leveraging for, so am I understanding you saying, like, how do we leverage, are you saying the experiences of this last year or the transformational experiences that we have collectively had together, or both together?
I feel that the transformational experiences are what raise the vibration and have us step out of our norm and to dare to do things that we wouldn't typically do. So I'm saying from the transformational experience, how do we leverage what has happened to us?
For us, meaning the personal, like, how do I, yeah, well, what I will say, I'll speak from my own personal experience. I think that once I have had a transformational experience, what it's done is it's opened up a new vista of possibility. All of a sudden, there's a new horizon in front of me. And from there, I can access different possibilities than I was able to. So I think leveraging in the sense of, like, how do I create more positive outcome from the initial positive outcome? For example, going on this walk. The way I leveraged, like, my continued transformational momentum in this year has been that I started walking. That started clearing up my mind a little bit, creating more space for contemplation and processing, which I think I really had not allowed a lot of room for, was the processing of what had happened. So once I actually began processing, once my hemispheres of my brain started recalibrating with one another, once my body started to sort of flush out toxins through being able to actually exercise and get my body moving, it created a new possibility for me, which was, maybe I want to commit to doing my yoga practice every single day as opposed to sporadically, which was what I was doing. So I don't think that I would have been able to make that choice or even see that as something that felt accessible unless I had made the initial choice to walk first, which got me into a positive enough, hopeful enough mindset to then be able to leverage that into the yoga practice. Once I was practicing yoga every day, it became clear to me that the way that I was eating was not really facilitating my best and highest. And so that allowed me to access being able to make more healthy food choices, right? So it starts to, in my experience, starts to snowball in a way. It starts to create positive momentum, which can, again, lead to more and more positive possibility. And I've been really loving this phrase that was, I hear lots of people say it now, but I feel like the first time it truly showed up for me was in the movie Frozen 2 by Disney. Do you know this movie, Frozen 2? Have you seen it?
Haven't seen it, but I know
No.
It's fabulous. I really praise Disney. I'm a big Disney fan, and for all the problematic aspects of Disney's past and of being a national corporation and the challenges that come with that, I do feel like the messaging that they're offering for kids in this contemporary age is very powerful and very much what I would want to communicate to them. And one of the things that Disney gave me that sort of was a tool that I was like, oh, wow, okay, I watched this children's movie and I really learned something, which is in Frozen 2, there's a character who's sort of in this place of despair and she's lost and she really doesn't know what to do. She's like in a cave and she's lost all of her friends and she's lost all of her resources and she's sad and she's grieving, which I think is something that we all can relate to. It's really like this metaphor for depression, right? Or just feeling totally disconnected from the world. And the song that she sings, the theme of it is just do the next right thing, is what they say. Just do the next right thing. Rather than having this idea that I need to have everything figured out or have some master plan or be able to know, what the future holds, just look in front of me and choose the next right thing. And that for me was my experience this year of, okay, I walked and then I looked around and thought, what is the next right thing? I should probably practice yoga again. I started practicing yoga. Okay, what's the next right thing? I should probably eat better. And so in a way, it's allowed me to, like, the universe I find in my life breadcrumbs the path. It's like, Hansel and Gretel is sort of a dark illusion there, but like, it's like some benevolent fairy god person is dropping like a clue or a sign. And all I have to do is stop, be present, look around and say, where is the sign? Where is the next right thing for me to do? So I guess that's how I think we can leverage our transformational experiences, is allow it, hopefully it allows us to see the next right thing.
Beautiful. So beautiful. Sara Jane.
I think for me, it was learning to be me and to trust me. And the one thing I feel we're never, ever taught and almost given permission to do is love ourselves. Because that's selfish. Well, I think we ought to really look at that word selfish and really find out what is selfish. Is actually taking care of you, listening to your heart, doing what feels right to you, learning to say no to others where you've always said yes, regardless of the fact that it doesn't feel right to you. It is about learning to listen to our feelings, our heart, and realizing that loving yourself actually truly means you can bring more love to others. Caring about yourself means you can bring more caring to others. There are so many little sayings about everything you are seeking is inside of you. Seeking that love, that acceptance from others, when what I really needed to do was seek that love from myself for me, accept myself, be true to myself. I can bring so much more to the people's lives that I touch by doing that than by constantly saying yes to everybody. And the one thing that really came to me was by constantly saying yes to other people, you're holding two people back. You're holding them back because you're not helping them to stand on their own 2 feet and live their own lives. And you're holding yourself back because you're not giving yourself the space and time to be true to yourself. That isn't selfish. That is almost selfless, because you can bring so much more. So it's opening up to the amazing being that you are. Everyone is special in their own unique way. No one is more or less special than anybody else. when you come from that place of such insecurity that I was in, I can say that now with such confidence and belief. And when a client said to me one day, she said, "Oh, you are special, Sarah." And I said, "I know." But there was absolutely no conceit. And they knew that because they know that I've said about everyone being special. And so yes, it is about that truth of self. You can bring so much more. Trust yourself and trust the things that are going on around you. I walked daily for years and years. Even when I was working in an office, I would go for a walk at lunchtime. I would get out the office and I would get into the fresh air. Sort of walking is something I just enjoy doing. And I've had 2 walks today already, sort of because that's my thing. Walking. You keep talking about walking. Yes, that is when the dragons that gave me their names, that is when so many things have come to me. Answers to questions. When I've connected with myself and realized that the only person who ever rejected me had been me. Opening up to you is the greatest gift you can give to the world. And if you haven't guessed, I have a passion about that. Well, Enolia.
So I'm sitting here thinking of the best way to phrase this question, which is that we've had this transformational experience, we have this compassion, we have this insight about ourselves. What are tips and tools that you can share with others from your own experiences of how to contribute to the whole, bringing people together? And I'm saying this very directly to you, Ben, because I want you to share some of the ways and methods and projects that you've done to really bring people together. I think your work is profound. It touches the deepest level of my heart participating in it. And I just, so I want you to know that I'm sharing this question to get you to speak a little bit about that in these times.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And I will say, I think I can connect the dot even from what you just said, Sarah, about the self and how to honor the self and the projects that I've been working on and that I got to work on with Enolia. And the thing that I will say is that I think in one of the major shifts that can happen that would really open things up in humanity is the understanding of the quote unquote, what we oftentimes perceive as the other as ourself, in the sense of, when and myself as one with all of humanity, all of reality, all beings everywhere, right? And so in a way, Sarah, when you say, that honoring oneself is not selfish in the classical sense of what we understand selfish to be being bad, I believe that to be true because when I honor myself, if I consider myself part and parcel of everything around me, I am honoring the whole as I honor myself. And at the same time, I think that to me, in this sort of dualistic reality that we live in, things are often conveyed as separate, away from one another, they are conveyed oppositionally to one another. And so there is this concept that the self, myself, as I understand it, is in opposition to the quote unquote other, the rest of humanity, the rest of reality. And I think to me, the honoring of both the self and the collective is finding the conscious choice somewhere in the middle of those two dualities. So assessing every single situation and thinking like, okay, within myself, what is in my best and highest interest? What takes care of me? Okay, in consideration of the whole, what is in the best and highest interest of the whole? And can I make a conscious choice as opposed to an automatic choice? And what I hear you saying in some ways, Sarah, is that in your past, your automatic choice was to honor the collective over yourself, and you didn't even choose that consciously. It just was the way that you always were. And I think that showed up for me a lot in my own life as well. And where I'm trying where I'm training myself in my life and the projects that I want to create are about creating that conscious awareness, creating the stopgap between the automatic behavior and what happens, so that choice can show up in that moment. And so just to loop it into the projects that I'm a part of, two of the main projects that I really spend a lot of my time and love on are the Human Library and the Reunited States of America project. The Human Library, Enolia, you've been involved with me in both of those settings, but just to briefly describe what they are in case folks want to get involved with these projects. The Human Library is an online space that's created for dialogue between people who have different lived experiences in order to better understand one another. Specifically, folks focusing on groups of people who have experienced some level of marginalization or trauma, stereotype, prejudice, creating space for folks who have not had access to those people to be able to expand their understanding of what that type of a person is like. This is an international nonprofit that's been doing incredible work around the globe for 20 years. So I'm honored to get to work with this group of people who have a really beautiful, proven protocol. And if anybody wants to be involved in this project, if that lights you up and it turns you on, you're like, yes, that sounds like a really cool thing, you can go to humanlibrary.org and discover what events we have. And we actually have an event that's going on tomorrow that you can still register for today if you want to come and participate in it. And what we say in the Human Library, sorry, this one, because there's a lot to cover, will be a little bit long of a riff, but what we say in the Human Library is that we differentiate between the idea of non-judgment and unjudgment. The delineation that we make is that human creatures, the way that we've been designed, the way we've evolved, is to make judgment about our environment and what exists in our environment to protect ourselves from what we perceive as danger. And so the way that that's shown up in the contemporary, in our contemporary lives is that we have created thoughts around who are dangerous to us, types of people that are dangerous. So based on ethnicity, based on religion, based on where they live, based on what their political beliefs are, I've created a belief system around who I believe is safe and who I believe is dangerous. And I make a prejudgment. I have a prejudice against that person because my judgment is not based on the person that's in front of me. It's based on a prejudgment I've made about a type of person. So the Human Library says, okay, if we just acknowledge and don't judge each other for the fact that we judge, right? That's just who we are as human animals. But instead try and create that moment of choice that first it starts with awareness, right? First, I have to become aware that I've made the prejudgment. And then I have to understand what the prejudgment is. So first awareness, then understanding, and then choice, right? From there. And so the Human Library creates spaces for this to happen. It's a transformational experience where I'm invited into a space with somebody who is different than me. I get to become aware of the prejudgment I've made around that person, acknowledge it. I get to talk with that person about the prejudgment. And then I get to try and create a different choice, a different understanding by asking questions and reformulating my data based on the person in front of me rather than the prejudgment I've made around them. And that experience is wildly transformative. I've watched it as a facilitator. I've watched hundreds of these conversations happen, and I see the transformation on the faces of the people as the sort of the cogs in the brain go click, click, click. Oh, wow, that's not that the thing I thought was true is no longer true for me. And now I'm a different person, and that's like a radical thing that can happen in a Zoom room, because we do these events on Zoom. So that's one project that I feel really excited about. And it's one of the ways that I am excited about making the world, creating possibility in the world, right? Because every time that somebody has that choice, it's a new possibility for them, which then changes the way they interact with every person of that type from that moment moving forward. right? So it's also, it's creating justice, it's creating equity, it's creating a more compassionate, inclusive world just by that one person having a different choice available to them when they meet somebody that's different than them. So I love that project. I could talk about it all day. I do talk about it a lot because I volunteer with them and work with them. The other project is in a similar vein, but it's specifically related to the divides that exist, the perceived divides that exist in the United States around rural and urban, and conservative and liberal, or red, blue, etc. And I've been learning a lot through this process, but last year, I felt in my heart this sense of needing to contribute to what I saw as a deep problem in the United States. And so I created this sort of small scale project that brought people together who had different political beliefs or lived in different, like, what I would call like urban systems. So if you're in a small town or like a rural area, or if you're in like a big metropolitan area, we just have really different lived experiences from one another based on the way that we're engaging with the world and what's happening around us. And so again, this is about creating new choices by creating a space where there can first be awareness, then understanding, and then a different choice made. And that was a really beautiful, transformative project that Enolia got to be a part of. And at this point, we're actually, just to give the plug, in April, we are going to be continuing this project by holding these conversations for next weekend, and the following weekend, we're going to do a session where people can be partnered with somebody who is from a different, what we consider like a different classification. So if you're a person who lives in a urban setting, you can be partnered with somebody from a rural setting. If you're a person who lives in, who has sort of what are classically conceived of as liberal beliefs, you could be partnered with somebody who's conservative. And we have a format that we actually got from Braver Angels, which is a great organization doing very similar work, who I've been deeply inspired by and worked in collaboration with. And you should look them up if this type of work excites you. And if you want to be a part of these conversations, you can email me at bencaroncreates@gmail.com. bencaroncreates@gmail.com. So my last name is spelled Caron. So BenCaron creates@gmail.com, and just say, that sounded exciting. The thing you talked about, I would love to be a part of that. And I will plug you into all the information. And thanks, Enolia, for giving me the platform to be able to speak to that, because I love and am very passionate about both those projects.
Absolutely. I love them too dearly to my heart. And I'm going to switch to Sarah, because Sarah contributes a great deal. And I want you to share a little bit more about your contribution and the tools that you use. And I mean, we're on one of them, because Sarah is a tremendous partner to me. And even being here. So Sarah, talk a little bit about the tools and tips that you have for now that just help us have a different outlook.
Thank you, Enolia. I think for me, it is about the information being out there for people to make a choice. And it is really important. And it is about empowering people. It really is. So yes, I've found a gift of healing TV, because it is about helping people to know what is out there that can support them on many levels. Yes, I've created vocal Reiki, which is the energy of Reiki, the universal healing energy that is Reiki, which to me is love, with sound. Sound is so powerful. And the very depth of that to me is the use of somebody's name with sound that can really, really help people to connect with themselves. And the experiences people have had with that. But the reason I do what I do is to help people to find what works for them. Because I get it. Each one of us is not right for everybody. What we bring isn't right for everybody. And you and I've had conversations, Enolia, and it may sound as if we're talking we're disagreeing with each other. But what I would say is listen. Really listen. Listen to understand. Don't listen to reply, which is we're all very guilty of. Because, and I've said this before, there was one program Enolia had asked me to share. I'd shared, and I can't even remember what it was about. And then I really listened to her answer. And if you hadn't listened, you'd have thought we were disagreeing with each other, but we weren't. We were just coming at the same thing from a totally different perspective. It's that 6 and 9, sort of, it really is. Is it 6? Is it 9? Actually, you're both right, and so listen, learn, be open to what is out there so that you can make a choice. Do your best to stay out of a judgment. And just recently, somebody I've connected with, I was raised a Catholic. So when you were talking about the Catholic Church, and a lot of people I've met who do this type of work were raised Catholic. It's amazing how many of them have been. And the Catholic Church has now decided, a little bit along the lines of the born-again Christians, that Reiki is not to be trusted. And it's just like, okay, fine, that's their choice. You won't stop me from offering the energy because I offer it. I don't give it. When you work with people who allow you to have choice, to say, yes, this is right for me, no, this isn't. And it's about that again, it's that feeling. What are you feeling? And trust that feeling to be the answer and your choice. And that is about what I am about, is about people stepping into their own power. I am not a healer. That suggests I can heal you. I can't. What I bring, the tool, the instrument that I offer, can empower your self-healing on a physical, emotional, and cellular memory level. That's how deep what I bring can go. But it's not right for everyone. And I trust that implicitly, because I am also a great believer in we make choices before we come here. Choices of the experiences that we have. And I cannot affect that choice in any way. And it is not for me to try. So what I always try to be is totally detached from an outcome. If you want something to happen in your life, then go out and try and make it happen for yourself. That may not happen, but you followed that path to it, and something else may crop up and take you on a detour. Allow it. As we were saying earlier before we started, if your path seems easy, I've heard this thing, if your path seems easy, you're on the wrong path. No. If your path is really easy, if things seem to be coming at you easily, it's because you are honoring yourself and you are going in the right direction. The blocks can come up to see whether you really want it, but they can also come up to say you're going in the wrong direction. If a block is totally insurmountable, you're being redirected. Trust it. I trust the universe. I try to help people
Absolutely.
do just that. Enolia. Have you frozen on us, girl?
Yes. So, just for myself, I have to just talk about both of you, which is that the Human Library is a phenomenal experience. Highly recommend. It is so liberating and so freeing. And I enjoyed being a library book, a book to be read. And it's a phenomenal experience. And I've participated in both of Ben's projects. I loved the second project. I call it Reunited States of America because it's so powerful. And what I learned was that communication in the right setting heals everything. Everything. I saw people come together that would never come together in the best of circumstances. And I cannot sing the praises of Ben's work enough. And if you don't know how to contribute and participate, that's how you contribute. Participate. Dare to step out of your comfort zone. Allow the process to guide you. And you will find that you will have an awakening, transformative experience. I can't recommend it enough. And I did. And this was only a few months ago. So I sing those praises. My contribution is I travel the world. I hold circles and I hold the dialogue. And I hold the dialogue with unlikely people. And I help people see their own beauty so that they dare to take a chance on what it is that they dream of, what it is that they want in their lives, what it is they want to invite in their lives and others. And, you know, I applaud Sara Jane because she talks about Gift of Healing TV, but I had this dream of always wanting to do this. And I'm here doing this because Sara Jane and this conversation where guests are held and have an opportunity to share their stories. And, you know, it's the other people that have been on the show, that haven't been on the show, that will be on the show. You guys contribute so much in your heart and in the love of what you do. And this is what makes the world beautiful. You know, I don't feel the tumultuousness of or oppression of what's going on around me because I surround myself in beauty, in people, and in the things that I choose to do. And to me, that's everything. So I know we've been going long and we will close this up, but I have to ask, I'm going to ask Ben and Sara Jane as a closing piece to just share a gift. Ben is a singer-songwriter, and I absolutely cannot let you get away with being on the show without singing. And then because you mentioned it, beautiful Sara Jane, your vocal Reiki, I'm going to ask you to share. And Ben would probably love to hear his name. So, and then
I would love to
finish it up, Sara Jane. Thank you. Mwah.
Thank you, Enolia. I will offer this just as a closing sort of blessing to everybody. This is a song that I wrote based on the loving kindness meditation, the metta meditation in the Buddhist tradition. And so I offer this just as my sincere wish and hope for all beings everywhere. Woke up this morning, Salute the rising sun, bathe in its glory. Send love to everyone. Look all around me. Find beauty in each face. This world astounds me. There's wonder in each place, 'cause I am a refraction of the light that shines in all. So when the Spirit beckons, I can't help but heed the call. May our lives be filled with these. May our words be true and kind. May we choose to be happy. May we learn to free our minds. May we be well. All those who wound me reflect me to myself. Their words pass through me. I only wish them well, 'cause we are a refraction of the light that shines in all. So when the Spirit beckons, we can't help but heed the call. May our lives be filled with ease. May our words be true and kind. May we choose to be happy. May we learn to free our minds. May we be well. Oh, 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 oh. Sara Jane and Enolia, may our lives be filled with ease. May our words be true and kind. May we choose to be happy. May we learn to free our minds. May we be well.
Thank you, Ben. That was beautiful.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having
Pleasure.
me.
Now, obviously, we're going to finish with you experiencing your name. I'm getting a sense there might be a bit more than that, but I have the feeling that what will come after that will be for everybody. So let's just see what happens. My suggestion is roots down. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that.
So powerful. I'm so glad that that's your healing practice. It feels incredibly clear to me why that works well.
Thank you. And a little bit of light language for everybody as well. So,
yeah, I got that.
any
Thank you.
final comments before we close?
So beautiful.
We've either got a great delay or she hasn't got anything to say. Ben, any final comments?
So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
I will just echo what Enolia is saying, which is thank you. I'm deeply grateful to be invited into this. I find that when Enolia, I think you said it beautifully, when I create circles of people who are united in intention and are offering the fullness of themselves, there's just the best of me gets to show up in those spaces because it's invited and the space is held for it. And that's always a gift to have these touchstones. It's why I think community and friendship and relationship are so important in our lives. And so thank you for inviting the best of me into this beautiful container you both have created.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Absolutely welcome. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks, for joining us. You will find Ben, if you're watching the video, you will find Ben's information under the video on YouTube. So if you want to get in touch with Ben and Enolia and myself, but Ben's the important one on this particular occasion. So please do check that out. Just under 2 weeks' time, 28th of April, Wednesday evening here in the UK. Trauma. What is it? Have you been affected by it? I am a great believer that there are many, many levels of trauma, and no one should judge what is traumatic to anybody else. And so we are going to be joined by Leslie Rowans, who is going to be talking with us about trauma. So I hope you will join us for that. Ben, thank you so much. Enolia, great to see you. Hopefully we will have a better connection next time when you're settled where you are in Angola. In the meantime, folks, please take care, be safe, stay well, love, peace and light. Namaste. Bye.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Bye.